Okay, hi guys. I'm going to try and show you how to make the jump from a Saxmonica to a saxophone. And it's not particularly difficult. Now what I'm going to try and do is liken it to surfing. Because as I'm in Sri Lanka surfing. All we're really doing with a Saxmonica or many other instruments is playing on top of the bass line. Now, if I was to make an analogy to surfing, we got the wave, and as surfers, we're just playing on top of the wave. It's as simple as that. You know, we're doing little turns, big turns, long turns, short turns, trying to catch the wave. But the wave is the bass line. So with an instrument like this, or a saxophone, all we're really doing is playing on top of the bass line. And when I say that, it means we don't really need to know all the sort of, technical stuff behind music as far as I can see. And once again, I'll liken it to surfing. If I had to go surfing and do all the technical homework and figure out why waves moved, why we moved, where the energy was, what to do here, what to do there, we'd probably all give up surfing. And I think music's a little bit like that, is that music over the last, 400 years has been sort of denoted down into a series of notes, and they have to be played this way and so forth. This stuff was all created 400 years ago. That was way before we had a bass line to play with. People had to make up the bass line, and it had to be sort of done in music, I suppose. Now we have bass lines, we have backing tracks, we have all sorts of stuff to play with. And effectively, as musicians, we're just making sound, and we're hoping that our sound blends with that bass line. That's all we're really doing. And so this is why I think you can transition from a Saxmonica to a saxophone very simply, because all you have to do is make the sound. We have a bass line to play with, and as long as we can get a decent sound out of the instrument, then we can play all day long on top of that bass line. If it was art, the bass line is just the sketch. If you were going to do a painting, it's the sketch, and we're just colouring it in with different instruments. So the bass line is the important part. That gives us the patterns to follow, or the line to follow, or as I've spoken to in the past, it's the street we're all walking down. And we just play on top of that. Right, now in order to transition from this up to a saxophone very easily, you just have to find this line of music. And this is one line of music. On the saxophone, it looks very complicated. It's not particularly complicated. Many things are the same. Obviously got a mouthpiece, a saxophone mouthpiece with a reed. We hold it pretty much the same. We use the same hand positions. On a saxophone, the little fingers operate the key, a lot of the little buttons, but for the argument to transition, you don't really need to do that, and I'll show you why. So, as long as you can make a decent sound on this, you should be able to transition straight through to a saxophone. So what I'm going to do is I'll show you the saxophone. I am by no means a good saxophone player, but I've transitioned from this up to this. I bought this 8 weeks ago in California. I've played it a lot. It's fantastic. Huge amount of fun. But okay, this is the line of music on the Saxmonica. Okay, so it's 5 notes. I think the musicians would call it a pentatonic scale. And then you have a blues note you can put in there. We'll worry about that later. You don't need it right now. But yeah, very similar. So exactly the same actions. And on the saxophone. So 5 notes. So now what I did is I figured out a song that I know the Saxmonica locks into 100%. And I've used Bob Marley, No Woman, No Cry. It's an amazing song. It's 7 minutes long, so it has lots of different components to it. There's a little bit of vocals in there, there's a guitar solo, but the song's broken up, and so it allows you to play lots of different sort of aspects of it. And the reason why I say use one song that really works for you, and play it a lot, because it's a lot of fun. But if you get really skillful at one song, then you'll find that transition just follows through to the next song. Because all we're really doing is getting better at moving our fingers and breathing. We don't need to know music at this stage, but we want to have really good skill set with the fingers. And so the faster and the quicker you can move your fingers, coordinated with your breathing, gives you many more options. So if you learn the one song, find a song that works for you. Bob Marley's the one that I've used. I'll put it up in the Saxmonica tutorials video. Use that. I'll throw some other ones up as well that I know work. And all you have to do to make that transition is buy a saxophone. This one cost me $300. It's amazing, you know, unbelievable. And I've had a huge amount of fun playing it. So what I'm going to do now is put on Bob Marley, and you'll hear what I'm talking about. So now I know this locks into this. This is in the right key, or we're playing on the right staircase, so to speak. Now if I find the same line of music on the saxophone, it should work. So it's basically the same 5 notes, and it's going to work all the way through. With the saxophone. Now what you have on the saxophone is you have a button on the back that you use with your thumb, and that gives you the higher octave. So we're playing the same 5 notes, press the button, we get the same 5 notes, they're just higher up the octave. So it gives you a much greater range to play with. And so press the button. Okay, not classic saxophone playing, but you can see what I'm saying. This is just training wheels for this. But the reason you can train yourself so well with this is A, you can take it with you, you can play it anywhere. The saxophone, well, there's only so many places you can pull this out. Saxmonica can come anywhere. Bluetooth speaker, GarageBand, and that's why this is so important to develop your skills for the saxophone. And then just same. So I'm not using my little fingers, I've just got the one line of music, so you can, those hand positions, and then the button on the back to get it up to the next octave. Too easy. Yeah, so to transition from the little dog, being the Saxmonica, to the big dog, being the saxophone, find a song that you can really click in with this, and you can use obviously Bob Marley or one or two others I'll put up. And then you'll find it should transition straight through. We're using the same mouthpiece, exactly the same. I've got a Saxmonica mouthpiece on the saxophone. And then it's just your breathing and follow that beat. And you should be able to transition. As your fingers become more skillful, you'll develop more tricks, more little finger flicks, more little patterns. Now there's a lot of people online giving you pre-written patterns. So they're really worthy of looking at. But at this stage, you don't really need to have any basic music knowledge to rip on a saxophone. We're just making a noise. We're coordinating our lungs, our embouchure, our throat muscles for growling, our fingers. It's really pretty simple. And if you're like me, you can fake it and make yourself sound a bit like a saxophone player. I don't profess to be one at all, but some people starting to think that I am. Yeah, so that's the easiest way to transition, is to pick a song that the Saxmonica links into, and then find that right line of music, and I'll show you what it is in a diagram. I think it's something, it could be the F sharp blues scale, not too sure, but it has those all three fingers down, those two fingers down. And of course, the more skillful you get at playing those notes, the more you can do, the more you can throw into the equation. But if you master one song, then you'll find all of the skill sets transfer straight through to another backing track. And then after that, you just have to learn a few more different lines of music, and you've pretty much got a saxophone covered. After that, practice makes perfect. You keep practicing, like we keep surfing, we keep catching waves, and we keep trying our little tricks on waves. Likewise with a musical instrument, you just keep playing it, you'll get more and more tricks, more and more little patterns that you can use. If you listen to any of the big pro-up saxophone players, you'll notice that there's a huge amount of repetitive patterns They play them with different sort of intensities, but the patterns are the same. So yeah, you don't need any music books as such, not at this stage. And if you figure out what you're doing with this, if you can play a decent, I don't know, if you can jam decently over any of these beats, then when you go and pick up a music book, I think you'll understand music in such a different way. Instead of having to learn music through notes and transferring it to this instrument or whatever instrument you're playing, you learn music through sound. And once you've got that, then look back at the notes, and then if you want, you can chase that sort of technical stuff that, you know, the product musicians chase. I don't know. I don't particularly want to become a brilliant musician by any means. But it's just, as far as I can see, it's just free flowing over a bass line, largely like we surf on top of a wave. The wave's always moving, we're moving, a little bit like the bass line's always moving, your fingers are always moving, and then through that, you understand music goes up and down, just goes in these basic patterns, and you might be away. You might have cracked the Saxmonica trick, which you can then take to a flute, a trumpet, a guitar, a piano, anything. We're playing with sound, and you don't necessarily need to know much about music.